Welcome to the Darwinian Delusions channel. Today what I want to cover is a misconception about this particular channel and the lectures and the talks which I give on the topic of Darwinian evolution. Many atheists seem to think I am posing scientific challenges to Darwinism. I am showing that it is scientifically invalid. That's actually a misconception. I believe Darwinian evolution is a working model, a working theory, a working paradigm, and it is scientifically valid. All I am basically doing is I am showing that the philosophy of science teaches us that no scientific theory, whether it's string theory or Darwin's theory of evolution, can be absolute. You will always have two particular problems to deal with. The first is the black swan problem, that you can always get new observations which challenge your previous conclusion. And second is, if you imagine a scatter graph, XY axis, and you have the different dots on there, each one of those dots is observations, and based upon those observations you can come up with multiple hypotheses, multiple theories, multiple paradigms, and this is the scatter graph problem. So because of the black swan problem and the scatter graph problem, no scientific theory can be proven to be true in the literal sense, and philosophers of science understand this. Indeed, even people like Einstein, who was a philosopher of science as well as a physicist, that's something that most people don't know, he said no amount of experimentation can prove me right, although one experiment can prove me wrong. So he understood that science doesn't give you absolutes, it gives you working models which can then be falsified. And even if a scientific theory is successful, like Newtonian mechanics was successful for 200 years. So for example, if using Newton's model you made a prediction that there's going to be this planet is going to be in this location at this particular time, it would actually be there. And likewise, you could make a whole bunch of predictions using the other tools within the Newtonian model of the universe, and you'd precisely make predictions and you'd get those precise confirmations. But it turned out Einstein showed, according to his understanding, that the universe is not the way that Newton actually envisaged it. Time and space are not fixed, which is one of the assumptions of the Newtonian model. Time and space are dynamic, they are changing, and likewise even the definition of mass had to change under the Einsteinian worldview. Also, gravity was no longer seen as a pulling force but a pushing force due to space-time curvature. So a complete paradigm shift, and this is exactly what happened between the Newtonian worldview and the Einsteinian worldview in the beginning of the 20th century. So just because something works doesn't mean it's absolutely true, because those same results which are shown to be true, shown to have been confirmed, they can fit into multiple other alternative theories. Hence why people like Thomas Kuhn, who is a philosopher of science as well as an astrophysicist, in his book The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, he speaks about how all of science is basically going through these periods of normal science, and then you get anomalies coming up, and then you have a revolution, and you have a paradigm shift. You have a complete shift in worldview. And he likened it to a gestalt shift, a complete shift in the way that you're actually looking at an object. I'm sure you guys have seen those pictures where it looks like it's two faces looking at each other, but when you look at it from another perspective, it's actually a vase. Now that's what Kuhn was basically speaking about, that science has these theories and they work really, really well, and they become paradigms and they become lenses from which you look at the world, and all of your data is actually affected by those lenses that you look at, that you observe through. And what actually happens is you just keep reconfirming what you already believe, the paradigm you already exist in. And you have radicals that come and they make revisions based upon the black swan, new novel data which challenges the previous paradigm, and also the scatter graph problem, that you can make a complete revision based upon the existing observations. You don't even have to have new novel observations. So nothing I am doing on this channel and the videos and the talks, I'm not posing a scientific challenge to Darwinian evolution. I accept Darwinian evolution to be a working model theory and paradigm. I am simply showing there is a discussion going on. It is speculative, it is based on assumptions, and there are disputes that exist about its most fundamental ideas among secular academics, including evolutionary biologists and philosophers of science. And there's 5 fully fledged alternatives that we know of. In fact, there's more than that, but 5 which are, if you like, well, you have heavyweights actually behind them. And all of these 5 alternatives were actually put together by atheist evolutionary biologists who don't believe that, you know, neo-Darwinism as it's in its current form is actually a viable option. So anything I do on this channel, you need to look at it from the lens of the philosophy of science. Now imagine, and I've said this previously as well, that imagine Darwinian evolution wasn't that speculative. Imagine it didn't actually have any assumptions, and there were no disputes about its most fundamental ideas, and neither was there any alternatives. Well, the same thing would apply that applies to string theory or any other theory in science. It still doesn't mean it's absolute. So the only reason I bring up that is speculative, is based on assumptions and there's disputes, is not to challenge it in a scientific sense, is simply to show this is the way that science works. And if these particular examples which I point out, they did not exist, it would make no difference to the overall argument. No scientific theory can be absolute. Darwinian evolution is a scientific theory, therefore Darwinian evolution cannot be absolute. I hope you have understood the framework within which you should understand all of the content on this channel.